Hey y'all, it's Desiree, and I'm back with another video. And for this video, God is seeing only the best. There are some people who asked God for his best. There are some people who gave God permission and authority to have their way in their lives, all while still keeping some form of expectation in their minds as to what his best looks like. But we can't see what God's best looks like, so therefore the only expectation that we can form alone is our best. And God is saying today, do you want your best or do you want my best? Do you want to trust me for your best, or are you willing to trust me for my best? God kept putting this meme on my heart today, and it's a meme that I saw years ago, and he reminded me of a time that I had my own expectation for his best. And he was putting it on my heart. Look how small that is compared to what it is that I have been showing you. For a long time, you thought that we were still working towards what you saw my best to be, not realizing that this is what we've been working towards all along. And God is saying to somebody today, aren't you glad that you waited? Aren't you glad that the original plan that you had, the original plan that you thought that God had, was never his intention at all? Aren't you glad that you waited? Aren't you glad that you trusted him? Aren't you glad that eventually you decided to take your hands off of it and allow God to be God? Allow God to move how he wanted to. Aren't you glad that you didn't settle, that you didn't back down? You thought that you were waiting on just a small thing, not fully realizing that all along you've been waiting on a God thing, a God move. I would say big, but I'ma say God. I would say giant, but I'ma say God. I would say great, but I'ma say God, a God thing. Aren't you glad that instead of continuing to try to figure me out, that you partnered with me and said, let's figure this thing out together? Yes, it's taking longer than expected. Yes, it doesn't look like what you thought it should, but it's only because it's a God thing and not a small thing. Thank God that he knows best. Thank God that his ways are perfect. Thank God that he's just. And thank God that his ways are not our ways. Because all along it was a God thing. Because while you were begging for that crumb, while you were crying, throwing fits over that crumb, God was preparing the plate, a 5-course meal. Get rid of your expectations because it's a God thing. Stop trying to tell yourself how it's going to play out, how it's going to pan out, because you don't know. It's a God thing. Don't even focus too much and too hard on what he showed you, because even still it's small compared to what he really has. It's a God thing. I encourage somebody today to trust God for the God thing. I encourage somebody today to keep waiting on God to produce the God thing. Don't grow bitter over what you feel like you lost. Don't grow bitter over the time that you feel like you lost. Don't grow bitter saying, I could have did something by now. I could have made something shake by now, because that's a small thing. That's embarrassing compared to what it is that God is really trying to do. That's a disgrace compared to what it is that God is really trying to do. It's disrespectful compared to what it is that God is really trying to do, what it is that God is doing. Sometimes we want to try to tap out. Sometimes we want to tell God, oh, see, nah, I told you, I just want this. I just need this. I will do what you want me to do for your kingdom, for your glory. But as far as me and my house, I don't need all that. Not realizing that is disrespectful to God. Not realizing that God ain't looking for humbleness. God ain't seeking humbleness when it's time to reward, when it's time to recompense, when it's time to vindicate, when it's time to call forth. He not looking for somebody humbled, timid, shamefaced when it's time to get up and speak his word, when it's time to walk out your assignment, when it's time to go for your calling. Yeah, you find yourself feeling discouraged because the thing that you would have done, how you would have did it, the expectation that you had was obtainable for you. But this is a God thing. And a God thing doesn't cost. A God thing, you can't pay for it out of your own pocket, but it comes with a price. Imagine going bankrupt for the small thing when all you needed was faith for the God thing. All you needed was steadfastness for the God thing. All you needed was perseverance for the God thing. More work for less pay. More work for less reward when you could have just trusted for the God thing. Because sometimes we are so quick to want to get busy. We are so quick to get up out of those chains and go put our hands towards something, not realizing you might as well have went and found you a comfortable seat. This is a God thing. Ain't no clocking in and clocking out. Ain't no getting paid every other Friday. Ain't no off days. This is a God thing and not a small thing. Will you trust him for the God thing? Will you truly believe him for the God thing? Are you going to keep trying to settle for less? Are you going to keep trying to persuade God to allow you to settle for less? Or are you going to stand for that God thing? Because God ain't changing his mind. God is not going back on his word. He is not about to settle concerning you. And he's surely not going to allow you to settle concerning you. God'll put you in something. God'll give you something that you thought you wanted so bad, that you thought was his best for you, just so you could get it and say, oh, no, God, I want what you promised me. Where that God thing? You better trust him for that God thing. You cannot go wrong when it's a God thing. Ain't no such thing as waiting too long when it's a God thing. Ain't no such thing as I had to give up too much. I had to sacrifice too much when it comes to a God thing. Ain't no disappointment when it comes to a God thing. Trust God at his best. I feel that's so strong for somebody. Trust God at his best. Forget about that old expectation you had. Forget about your definition of a dream life. Forget about your definition of success. Trust God at his best.